Welcome to Mindless Entertainment. I'm Jesse Milestone, and this is meant to offend. So if you're offended, good. Today's message is specifically for all of the white South African farmers who are faced with the prospect of losing their land sometime soon, and for all the people signing the petition to say that they should come to the U.S. So actually mostly for those people. Mostly you people who are like, yeah, petition for white South African farmers, we should... So this is a thing. If you don't know about this, there's a petition right now going around saying that we should stop allowing any of the Somalian immigrants and refugees into this country, and we should instead allow all of the South African white people, white farmers who may be losing their land because of certain governmental conditions. Now, in order to go through this, I need a couple disclaimers, and we need to talk about the history here a little bit in South Africa. So, and then I will with unequivocally and unabashedly, as you all know, give my very, very deep thoughts and opinions on this matter. First of all, yes, I'm really sunburned. Get over it. And my light is terrible. You're just going to have to deal. I'm sorry, guys. I'll do better next time. Maybe I won't. Who knows? Two, look. Here's a thing that's kind of come up lately, right? Guys, you like me because I say what I'm thinking and I don't give a shit what you think about it, all right? So the reality of that situation is I might offend you sometimes. We're all humans. We're all individual. We all have unique perspectives. And the thing about running a course that swims a little more centric is we're going to fall on completely different sides of a lot of issues. As some of you may or may not be discovering, I have very strong opinions and leanings in one direction over the other on many, many issues. I have certain leanings that go the other way. But my big thing is we need to be talking about this. We all need to feel comfortable expressing our opinions and having educated discussions regarding those opinions. We need to not be shutting each other down because of those, except for me in my videos, because guess what? I'm going to say things in the most extreme way I can possibly think to say them, because that is what's fun for me. That is how I like to express myself. You all know this. That is what you're here to see. So if I say something that pisses you off, calm the fuck down, all right? Just enjoy being on the other side of things for a difference, you know, and maybe like utilize your human empathy to be like, I wonder if this is what people who actually liked The Last Jedi felt, and then disregard those people because they liked The Last Jedi so they don't count as humans. Anyway, that's the disclaimer. Now, the history. Okay, so before you offer any opinion on what's going on in South Africa right now, you need to get yourself educated about the history of South Africa, all right? Because it's intense and it's kind of fucked up. So, quick history lesson there. If you're not familiar with apartheid, apartheid is a thing that happened in Africa after the colonists came in and, you know, kind of took over the country, which was basically like, it was segregation. It was not basically, it was segregation. And it was not like here where we had separate but equal. It was separate and fuck you guys. So that was apartheid. That was let me come in and imperialize your country, and that was what we did to the Native Americans, effectively. But different white people doing that to black people in South Africa. Now, when this happened, there was this thing called expropriation, which was, we took your land away. So all the white guys came in and were like, we're taking all your good farmland, and we mean all of it. So ultimately, you had a population, the majority and indigenous population of a country that was now suddenly left with 7% of the land in the country, and very little of it actually arable, you know, or any good for anything at all. So that happened, and that happened like not that long ago. That happened not too very long ago. So that's like not kind of recent memory. Now, apartheid itself ended in 1994. That only ended in 1994. That's like us having segregation in 1994. Like, that was not that long ago. We had arcades in 1994. Arcades and segregation just don't go together. Anyway. So that's something to chew on right there, okay? So then you have this now movement. Now, when apartheid ended, right, just for some knowledge and ideas, about 85% of the land of South Africa was owned by white people, right? 85%. Now, all these, what is this, like 24 years later or something? That number is down all the way to 73%. So 73% of the land is owned by white people. We're going to go through some statistics here. 73% of the land is owned by white people, okay? Now, only 8% of the population thereabouts is white. So you have the vast majority of the land owned by 8% of the population. You now have 80% of the black population that's feeling completely disenfranchised because, you know, whitey stole all of our stuff and we want it back. Now, just another little tidbit to chew on. You are also talking about a situation in which the 10 wealthiest percent of the population controls 95% of the nation's wealth. Now, if that sounds familiar, that's because that's kind of the situation we have going on in America, which is why you have a lot of bubbling tension now going on in the class systems. To put other things in perspective, if we want to really, apartheid and what happened here, that would be like one day black people suddenly having way better technology and stuff than all of the white people, and taking away almost all of our land in America. That would be if black people owned, it left white people with 7% of the land. So like some one little state off in some corner somewhere was our state, and they had everything else, and they had 100 bajillion acre plantations and whatnot, and we had nothing. So that's scale-wise, that's what you're talking about, like population percentage-wise, if that flipped over, right? So think about that one for a second. So there's all these things going on. So now what you have is a climate in which these people, the majority, the disenfranchised majority, is saying, we want our land back. That's like not that unreasonable to say, you guys took this from us, and like in your grandma's lifetime, just about, we kind of want it back. This is not like this is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years later, and these people who aren't remotely related to anybody who had anything to do with slavery and whatnot. These are like the sons and daughters or grandchildren of the plantation owners, basically, who were directly involved with taking the land, and they're direct people here. So the anger is certainly justifiable. And the problem that you have now, though, is once again, when 10% of your population controls 95% of your population's wealth, those people also tend to have the strongest say in government, right? Even if it is a black-controlled government, these wealthy white people are still having a lot of say. So what you have is a situation since the end of apartheid where the interests of the white people have been protected and the interests of the black people have been largely ignored. So again, you can see how that kind of creates tension, right? So now the black people are saying, we're not going to take this anymore. We're not having this anymore. We want these things and we want it now. So one of the things that happened is they elected a new president, our prime minister, and he wants to go full expropriation. Let's take the land from the white farmers and let us give it to the black people, back to the black people. Reclaim our heritage, because land and land ownership was a very important part of that culture as well. And he's saying that we're going to do this now. He wants to push through a motion to do this without compensation to the white farmers. Now, that's a little messed up in some ways, even acknowledging that these people have, again, because it's not these direct people that took that land. These are people who are now working in their families' farms and whatnot. So it's a little bit of a stretch to say, like, you personally need to pay for these crimes done. Like, I can definitely see you saying, like, you ridiculously wealthy people who profited off of our suffering owe us something. I think that's reasonable. I actually don't think that's unreasonable at all. I think that you do, and that land, giving that land back is maybe a big part of that. I think it is a big part of it. Now, the issue I have is not so much a moral question about taking this land away from the people, but if you actually look at economically, there was a country recently who tried the same thing. It was Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe, when they went for expropriation without compensation, now went from a thriving economy to an economy that is actually not growing anymore. It's doing the opposite of that. It is actually losing more stuff than anyway. It's bad. It's bad. Bad stuff happened in Zimbabwe. Because the reality is, if you're going to take something without compensation factors in at some point, no matter what. It factors in a variety of ways. Now, one of the hairy situations you have is you're talking about the value of the land of these big commercial farms. The value of the land is only about 10% of the total value of the farm. What else you have? You have the machinery. You have some of it's, stuck in there, and some of it's mobile, but you have machinery. You need this machinery to run the farm. So if these people take the machinery away, then then now you can't actually work the land, but now it's a little harder to justify saying, well, we're taking your land and all your stuff with no compensation for the stuff that you've invested heartily in. But then if we're paying for the stuff, then you're ending up paying a lot more than the land is even worth for this stuff. So it becomes like a murky question there. And then another really, really big issue is the idea of debt. Not all these people own land that is fully theirs. They're indebted to a lot of banks. They have loans, etc. And so what do you do then, right? You either have a situation where the government says, all of these loans don't exist from our expropriated land, they don't exist anymore. Great, now your banks are out $13.7 billion. That's kind of a lot of money. That's going to sink a few banks, maybe. And, like, do we really care about the banks? They're just more rich white people. Well, we don't really care about the banks, but on the flip side of that, do we want those banks to ever invest in arable land in South Africa? Well, kind of, because now you're trying to create a sustainable farming community out of your black farmers, and some of them might need loans too. But now you're having big investors who say, we don't want to do this because, the property rights and things are so shaky and they're so sketchy here, it's not a safe investment anymore. So it's going to be much, much harder to do that. Now, on the flip side of that, you have the government, you have the banks paying for paying off the debts. If you actually pay the banks off the debts, well, you're still talking compensation here. You're just compensating different rich white people. If you're talking about a moral issue, because that's what it is. It's the moral idea of these people don't deserve compensation for what they stole from us. That's the morality here. But so then you're just compensating other people who really did take things from you anyway, and you're not doing any. It still doesn't make sense. And then there's also the side issues of, okay, we're now taking these farms that have been operated and owned by these certain people and giving them to certain other people, maybe divvying them up, subdividing them, with no real plan in place for how to actually have these people take over these farms and run them in a profitable and successful manner. Not everyone here has the right training to work the particular farm that they just happen to be inheriting tomorrow. And you had that in Zimbabwe too. You had a lot of farms go defunct because people didn't have the right training, equipment, knowledge, etc., connections to work the land the way that they needed to. So you're gonna have some serious economic blowback if you go for expropriation without compensation, is the point. So that's really, you take the morality out of it. That's the economic issues there. And so really, I hope what this is shedding light on is the fact that this is a complicated economic issue. And even if you can pick a moral side. You can be like, I love white people, or I love taking back things that were taken from the disenfranchised. Like, you can pick a moral side. I don't think that you can't have absolutes here. That just doesn't work in a society where you're trying to have two different people get along. You need some level of compromise, whatever that is. Do I think that the wealthy white South Africans owe something to the people they took all this from? Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely think they do, and I think that land reclamation has to be a part of that, because of the absurdly skewed distribution, and of for the pride and culture, etc., for the people that lost that. I think that is important, but you have to do it in a way that's not going to cause massive economic collapse. So that's the one hand of things. I'm not really worried about the white farmers, because this 8% of the country has done really, really well for themselves. Again, they own most of the country's wealth. I'm not really worried if we take their land that they're not going to be okay, that they're not just going to get a party boat and retire to Fiji, That's kind of the way it's looking. So now let's get back to the thing that we're really here to discuss, which is this ridiculous petition saying we should, Somalian refugees, all that space we're leaving for refugees from Somalia, we should just take that space away and give it to the white, wealthy South African farmers who are now being dispossessed of their land. And this is going around in some other countries too. No, guys. Like, I don't know how to say this in a way that's not going to offend anybody who agrees with this, because it is, because we're all really offended by these things, and I know you guys really, really hate it when I say this, but look, if you're saying, here are these refugees who are hurting, who are in danger in their homelands, who are being killed off, who are being maimed, injured, diseased, etc., whatever, let's shut those out in favor of the wealthy white guys. I don't know how else to say this, but that is actually racist. Like, I'm not mincing words here. I'm not joking anymore. I'm not tongue-in-cheeking this. I'm not, haha, you must be if you're not. I'm sorry. If you think that we should say, fuck you, all you immigrants who are hurting, who are coming from horrible places where horrible things are happening to you and your families, in favor of a bunch of people who've lived these cushy lives that they've gotten from taking from other people, you are racist, and you're inviting people in your country who are racist. These people all profited from taking things away from the black people who've lived in that country for generations. Like, you're supporting racism. You're supporting racists coming into our country. Like, that's actually what it is. That's the definition of it. I'm not being hyperbolic here. I'm not exaggerating. I'm just saying it the way it fucking is. And guess what? If you don't like being called racist, that's probably because you fucking are. Like, people everyone accuses everyone of being racist, and if you know that you're not, if you know that inherently you're a decent person, you're not racist, it's not gonna flip you out, all right? It's gonna be like being called anything else that you're not. You're gonna be like, well, that's annoying and you're stupid for calling me that, but I'm going to move on with my life because you don't define who I am. Now, if you are actually kind of racist, when someone calls you racist, you're going to be like, no, I'm not. How dare you? How could you say that? So if you're one of those people, check yourself seriously because you might actually be. And look, maybe you don't know that. Maybe you don't think you are. Maybe you don't want to be. That's fine. So if you're flipping out over me saying this, like, take a look. Maybe you are, and like maybe this can be an opportunity for you to be like, oh shit, maybe I have these racial prejudices. How can I work on not being such a racist anymore? Like, that's fine. Do that self-work. That's cool. But yeah, it's just that's the way it is. And yeah, I get the immigration issue is hairy, that there is the issue of, okay, it's hard to vet these refugees and things like that, and there have been issues in the past of violent refugees coming into the country, but you can vet them. There are processes, and I think that, look, the humanitarian, I'm a humanitarian in a lot of ways. Like, I believe that we should take care of fellow man, and if people are suffering, you fucking figure out a way to help them. You know, whatever it is, however you're doing it, rather than saying, no, let's not help these guys because it's easier to help these guys who don't really need our help, just figure out a way to help them. Figure out, maybe it means making a sacrifice here or there. Fucking figure out how to help them, goddammit. Anyway, guys, those are my thoughts on the topic. Anyway, this video was created at the behest of Tie-Hi. Whew, what a nice politically charged topic. So those are my thoughts on what that dealy bob is. Now, if you want to be like Tie-Hi and be like, hey, Jesse, talk about stuff, and have me actually be like, okay, I'll do that, I'll get right on that, you can become one of my patrons. That's over at patreon.com. I have the link in the description below. It's a great little fun community full of people who like my yelling, and you get fun little perks by being on there. You get some bonus content you can't find anywhere else. So if that's a thing that interests you, or if you want to get to steer the direction of my rants, go ahead and check that one out. Anyway, we'll be back with more sometime later this week.